Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back, everybody.
Please do subscribe and have that little bell click to both channels, EEARTS and also Evolutionary Energy Arts. We understand that, in these times, it's tough to find sources that you trust, and maybe we don't always disagree, but hopefully you guys are enjoying the content.
Yes, we do our best to help you guys understand what we understand and move forward in a world that is so confusing, that is so chaotic. We really got to make some sense of it so we can find our own grounding.
Absolutely. So today, we were showing how Beto over on Evolutionary is sick. He's got some sort of strange bacterial infection going on. But, hey, he went ahead and did it. You know what he did. And a lot of people are waking up right now and wishing that they didn't do it. And there's a lot more going on than that. Just listen to the truth is really slowly but surely coming out here.
I'm sorry. I took control. I shouldn't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. Go ahead. You tell me.
He's joking about taking control. He took control. I'm not allowed to do that. And some people were bringing up the fact that we saw Joe Biden leading him away. So we'll bring up this sound here. Leading him away just yesterday, away from talking to people. And, how can you really, truly believe that this person got the most votes in presidential history? I mean, seriously. He's not anybody anybody's ever been excited about. Love or hate Obama. And again, Cindy and I, we recognize that all the politicians they're figureheads. They're there for a purpose. And their purpose is often not what you might think it is. For those that are awake to the bigger scheme of things and the facts that, it's not even countries that have real power. Corporations have more power than countries in this world.
Mm-hmm. Anyone who can control the systems that control us are the ones who really have the power. But it does get frustrating to look at all of these entities and they're all playing their part, and people get so frustrated because this politician is doing that and this politician is doing this over here, and how come, why can't they just be normal? And the answer is because they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to play the part, the exact part that you see right now, and they're all playing it very well.
But just look at the popularity of the puppets. Let's see which puppet is more popular.
Yes.
In reality, if you want to look at the Dems, when Bernie held rallies, way more people showed up than when Hillary did. And yet, if Biden did a rally, Hillary did a rally, and Bernie did a rally, Biden would probably come in third. Mm-hmm. And yet he got the most votes ever. He got way more votes than Obama. Obama drew huge crowds. And then, of course, 45 drew huge crowds. So if you're looking at their ability to inflame public support one direction or another, 45 and Obama, a lot more, powerful in that sense. Biden is a snooze fest. I mean, he's not even vanilla. He doesn't even rank vanilla. There's no flavoring with Biden. None, besides the flavoring of corruption.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I wonder if there is such a flavor as no flavor.
Yeah, well, that would be him. Now, in the political arena, he is unflavored. So unflavored wins over chocolate and vanilla? I don't think so. We're not even talking about bringing strawberry into the mix and some other more exotic flavors like mango and things, watermelon, No. This is unflavored. How many people are going to pick unflavored?
Right? So I mean, well, once again, though, he is playing his part of unflavored.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, then we see how things are going out there. This is the big reveal. we were just touching lightly on where the planets are astrologically speaking. And so, we're reaching a point in time when the influences of the planets are going to cause truths to come out. And they're not going to be able to sugarcoat and, put lipstick on these pigs, so to speak. It's going to be kind of starting to get obvious. So here you see 45 calling for an immediate redo of the 2020 results of the 2020 election. And so, again, many of us know that this has all been a symphony for a very long time. Do you really think that we would truthfully go from one extreme to another if we weren't being manipulated? I think we'd tend to find a middle ground, but no, they don't want middle ground. They don't want middle ground. They want extremes. Why? Well, because they want to redo the whole system. They got to have chaos. Chaos in which they could bring out new order. And I was sharing that, like in 2016 and all, and I've shared this in numerous videos, I did feel that if HRC was going to be elected, that we would end up with WW3 shortly thereafter. I could feel it coming. And WW3 has always been in their plans. So it was the lesser of two evils, because I also felt that 45 equated to chaos and destruction, albeit in a different manner. So we were having this conversation, and it's kind of like we were just having this conversation with Kate. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate. Hello.
A family member that we meet with every couple weeks. And I would say this is much like Enlil and Enki. So Enlil, if you go back to the Anunnaki stories, Enlil at a time said, hey, there's just way too many humans. They're noisy. I can't get any sleep. This stinks. Let's just have a big redo. Let's just wipe them out with a big flood, and then we'll start again. Enki didn't want that, so he sent a message to the Sumerian version of Noah, and these stories are 1,500 to 2,000 years in writing, older than anything biblical, that you better build an ark because a flood's a-coming. And so when you look at it, though, do either of them truly have the better, do they really have the best in mind for humanity? No, because then later on when Anu was visiting, Enki tricked the Sumerian Noah into not accepting the gift that would have brought us up in par, where humans would have been on the same grounds, so to speak, with the Anunnaki and the Gigi themselves. So, he tricked the Sumerian Noah into declining a generous offer to keep us as slaves, basically. So, again, Enlil and Enki don't have your best interest. At some point in time, you're going to have more and more coming out about these characters, to the point where they're going to be getting ready to introduce you to the successors of Enlil and Enki, so to speak, in person at some point in time. And that'll be a big day when that happens, as far as we talk about media coverage. Ooh. Yeah, I'm sure you'll have the Pope and the leader of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Maybe they won't have to go to Antarctica for that meeting.
I don't know. Maybe at some point they will just have them here on stage somewhere, somehow. But time will tell.
Absolutely. So, yeah, again, you choose left, choose right. You're still choosing from the same well, so to speak. So, yeah, chaos is the name of the game, and right now it's all about creating the landscape for a civil war, second revolution to happen within this country. Is the food crisis over, or is it just getting started? Do we need to even ask that? This is in Zero Hedge. And, it's nowhere close to being over. And we're going to, touch on some things that are showing that. I mean, look at these graphs. This is, again, what we were showing the other day. German 1 year forward baseload electricity per megawatt hour, what you're going to be paying in Germany. It's like 7 times, not even a previous year. It's insanity. People are not going to be able to afford things. And so here we see COVID-related hunger could kill more people than COVID. Where's this coming from? It's coming from the UN. So obviously, this is going to be something to pay attention to, because do we trust the UN? Well, again, they're part of the writers of the script that's going on, so we want to pay attention to what they're saying. So they say that we lost 6 million people to the plague upon the land, which really, when you think about 8 billion people on the land, that's not enormous. It's not a black plague, but it perhaps was never intended to be, as, again, oftentimes, introduce something just for the sole purpose of giving the cure, to give that solution. The solution is the why you have the problem in the first place. The solution is everything. Of course, now people are figuring that out. But per the UN, and there's 2 sources, you could watch this little clip, and then if you want to go bigger, this is Robert Kiyosaki's show that goes deeper. You own nothing and be happy. Hey, he's got the little Wikipedia Great Reset, so it's got to have some good info in there. Per the UN, it's estimated 860 million people could starve to death in the next 2 years. What? That's almost 1 billion people. So you're talking about 1 out of every 8 people could starve to death in just the next 2 years. Remember those 2025 numbers? 2025 numbers, those DEA-GEL numbers, there's a lot of different things contributing to those numbers. One part is definitely plague upon the land and the cure that comes thereafter, especially the cure, and then also the famine, and then also the war. So we have all these things coming together. It's making those numbers look like, unfortunately, they can be a reality. And again, we need to try to wake people up as much as possible. And I think we are waking people up. Somebody said, there you go, spreading the lies of the fact that we have a bright future. It's nothing but darkness. No, in the big scheme of things, if you go back over the last 6,000 years, there's a lot of darkness. But here we are in the last couple decades. So we're getting to a point where the system's going to crumble. It's always darkest before the dawn, and that's exactly where we are right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, isn't it what we do with these opportunities that really, really matters? I mean, so many people are faced with horrible things day in and day out and throughout their lives. But when people are able to discover how strong they are, they discover this in the depths of the pain, in the depths of the sorrow. They get up and they see, wow, I can do this. So it's something that I think we should look at as a very positive way, how we can get things done and how strong we are and how versatile and resourceful we can be.
I would not be surprised at all if at some point in the very close future we see something that we would never want to see, which would be an actual National Guard in its home state defending itself against government forces sent there to basically bring that state into subjection to the federal government. This is what's being orchestrated. Futures, global markets tumble, central bankers plan to push the world into coordinated recession. It's out there, and that's actually completely accurate. It is. We know it. So we know it. We know it. We know what's coming. They want a digital currency. They want to be able to, track everything you do. You have Nancy Pelosi talking about any transaction, $600 has to be monitored. Most people probably make $600 or more in their paychecks. So they're going to know every deposit from your employer. Not that they don't now, but we don't get to see every little investment that Nancy makes or anybody else, any other member of Congress. They're all getting exempt from all these laws. And we know they play the game to their own benefit. We need to kick them all out. And again, when you see these people constantly getting put back in, elected back in, time after time, when Congress has a 7% approval, something doesn't seem to make sense there, does it? Well, how about this? We're talking about almost 1 billion people that may starve, and here we see, hopefully the power stays on, 3.8 million renters will likely be evicted in the next 2 months. 2 months. 3.8 million. Almost 4 million people might be kicked out of their homes. Now, these are renters, so they're more than likely not able to secure a mortgage in the first place. Where are they going to go? They're going to have to go back to mom and dad or grandma and grandpa or brother and sister. If they get kicked out of their rents, they might have to try, going to a totally new area that's less expensive, or move in with family, or they're going to become homeless. This is part of the big unveil of what's going on. And as we're saying this, a third of Pakistan's literally underwater. The crisis is of unimaginable proportions. Inhabited by 242 million people. That's the 5th most populated nation on the planet. And 1/3 of it is literally underwater. It's all one big ocean. There's no dry land to pump the water out on, an official said. Record monsoon rains. This is a total atrocity. Over 1,000 people are lost, and those numbers are rising. Again, let's send our prayers that way. When we see, all the technologies that are involved in our daily life, and we recognize the tic-tac-toe patterns overhead, we understand, Operation Popeye, Vietnam. That was so many years ago. They flooded entire villages away. What do you think the technology could do now? And then you got 25% of people in England won't turn on heating this winter, so says the study, because they're not going to be able to afford to. How many people are going to end up, hey, I haven't seen Joe. Joe's elderly. We should check on him. We haven't seen him. Go knock on the door, and he's deceased in his apartment because he was, suffering from exposure. This is going to be a reality. Again, it's darkest before the dawn, and that's the period that we are in. Very cold northern Iran, southern Africa, South America swings between extremes. China breaks more than 20 monthly low temperature records. So we have seen a lot of persistent cold in South America. Again, it's the extremes. They're on both ends of the spectrum, and they're leading to, again, this conditions where, the fuel prices are going to be exorbitant, and yet we're going to have scarcity when it comes to food. It's a recipe for disaster that's been planned for a very, very long time. And here you have food lines as far as the line can see, and I can see in Milan, Italy. They're all looking for handouts, bread, milk, basic things. Now, some of these people might be used to eating organic, and now they're going to just have to take whatever they can get. And I think that's also part of the bigger picture. A lot of people are going to have lowered immune systems, and that's going to make you more susceptible to any form of disease that's out there.
Mm-hmm. And all of this stuff is very, very hard to watch and to witness, and it is quite disturbing. But the whole purpose of bringing it forward is so that maybe someone will be able to prepare, and in that preparation, bring 5 people with them. So in that effort, we are circumventing the issue.
And this is talking about the Great Drought and the Great Deluge all at the same time. And then, of course, it's blaming carbon emissions, which we know that's not the bigger picture. But, to be honest, too, we do know the bigger cycles. We know the grand solar minimum. We understand that we're in a magnetic pole reversal. But that's not the whole reason. And that isn't the whole reason. They'll always have people out there to catch people that wake up in one line, and then they got to send them off on another tangent. It's just part of the control system and the control matrix. The fact is the technologies out there can manufacture all this. And here we are, and now we're having another deluge. And yet we were having a tendency towards getting into that drought conditions, and boy, is it coming down hard. And it wasn't really forecast to come down this hard as it is right now. But again, all the geoengineering that we know is a fact is having a huge effect on what we're seeing right now. And go to Tunisia, fuel shortages are hitting, rationing is hitting. And this is where, we had that Arab Spring uprising going on. The kids are playing in the bedroom. So please excuse them as we only have 2 rooms. We live in a tiny home. So, grocery stores have restricted people to single items, single commodities. This is all part of what's starting to break out all around the globe. This is going to lead to a lot of chaos. As Nostradamus, had said to his son, and I've quoted that a million times because it's just so wild when you hear something 50 years ago and then now you're actually living in these times that was talked of. And, many people will say we're living in Revelation. Yeah, and these prophecies are not restricted to any one person, not one religion, not one race, creed, color, not one ethnicity. No, these are universal, and people have the ability to tap into timelines. We all have that ability. And then, of course, we also have the controllers that are giving out the script because they want us to be co-creators in this reality of, literally living in a period of tribulation. So over in Iraq, which has gone through hell, just as Afghanistan and Syria have gone through hell, U.S. Embassy employees evacuated from the green zone. There's chaos developing in Iraq, and we could show you this video. And all sorts of protests going on. Iraqi army near the green zone in Iraq over here. And looking out of RT, there's more videos here. People pulling down barriers, people going into the presidential palace. We saw this also, over in Lanka, and we've seen this in other places. This is getting to be a common thing. As Nostradamus was saying, you're going to see countries in revolution, complete states of revolution that will last years. And again, it's human nature to want things to be done and to go to bed tonight and wake up tomorrow in 5D and everything's just perfect. Maybe if we ignore it, it'll go away. Well, maybe if you get to a place where you're far enough away from everybody else, yeah, you can live a life that's not going to notice. Like if you were in certain places during World War II, you might have not known that there were these particularly horrible camps, like Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. You might not have a clue, and you might not have never known, and your life was just fine. But yeah, other people really did go through that pain and suffering. So again, it's all about where we want to put our energy and our intention. For Cindy and I, it's about waking people up to the tragedy that's going on with the hopes that we can avert this and get that shift in consciousness that will get people out there to say, hey, we're done with this system. This system's broke. We cannot aid and abet this system anymore. And so it just like we just saw in another country there in the presidential pool. Yeah. This is what's going on. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have killed at least 500,000 people, according to a report. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, double to 10 times that in reality. So ever since 9/11, and, the war on terror happened. The war of terror was a war of terror. The war on terror was a war of terror itself.
It is. And this is the storyline that we have to walk with for right now. And it's really important to wake other people up, get other people to understand, because when we can get other people to understand, that's where we can come together in different forms and not walk down the path that they're laying out for us right now. It's like people think that the only option they have is the option that that is in the news, but that's not true. There's another way we can do these things if we help each other.
Every inch on your waistline increases the risk of heart failure by over 10%. And just think about all the people, more than half, according to the sources in the US, about 70 to 75% in the UK have something else going on that's increasing your risk of heart failure. This is the time to get into the best shape of your life, because this is a war of attrition, and they do expect that many people are going to just succumb to this war of attrition. And many people are going to go the route of, just accepting whatever's handed out to you for food, even though it might be tainted with who knows what. Nanu, nanu. Caloric restriction for longevity. Yes, eating less can increase your life. So this is why we're stressing so much about learning some nutritional basics and understand the concept of boosting your immune system instead of obliterating everything in your body with something called antibiotics, for instance. And again, biotics are life. So when we're taking antibiotics, for instance, you're basically, it's like you're napalming your whole system. You're taking a scorched earth approach, and you're wiping out all the good and the bad bacteria. If you're using antibacterial soaps on your dishes, I would really recommend not doing that anymore. It's a bad idea. All these things are influencing our health in a negative direction. I cannot conceive of drinking soda. I really can't conceive of it. Hi, Amanda. Amanda had a session with us today, and she was sharing. She's homeschooling her kids, multiple kids, and she feeds her kids well. They went on a camping trip with other people, and the other people gave her kids soda, and they couldn't believe that her kids were sick afterwards because they're not used to drinking soda, which, again, small doses of poison can basically end up being something that we get used to. And then we wonder why our health is suffering. We wonder why are we getting more and more out of shape? Why are we lethargic? Why do we have allergies? Why did we develop diabetes? All these things are really the result of what we decide to put into our body.
And we're up against really difficult choices too. When you go camping with friends and you have a lot of other children, or eating a lot of other children they're eating a lot of other things that children like, and you kind of feel swayed to go ahead and let the kids have a good time. And I understand that. I get that. It's difficult, and all you can do is go with life as best as you can. Take whatever lessons you learn from that and help build yourself up for the next time you have to, be with people who don't quite understand or have the same ethics that you do, because, her children got sick. They got really sick, and of course they would, because they're not exposed to that. But now the next time they go out camping, her kids will be ready and armed on their own to say, no, that didn't go too well for me last time, I'll pass. But it's a life experience, and we all just have to walk the best path that we know how for that time.
Absolutely. So just basically cutting calories. If you cut your calories by, say, 20 to 30%, you might literally live 3 to 7 years longer. Literally. And so when people say, I can't afford to buy organic, it costs twice as much, well, then just have half a portion. Oh, wow. That will blow people's minds. But at the same time, when we recognize that in the U.S., more than half of the people are literally obese, well, we're heading into tough times. And so it's not about necessarily calories. It's about nutrient-dense foods. Foods that are going to nourish the cells. We should be thinking of that first and foremost. Think about foods that are going to boost your immune system, and then just eat less. Like I made a dish that we usually make with using pasta or rice, and instead of using pasta or rice, I basically cut up cabbage in long strips to replicate noodles. And again, cabbage has a lot of cancer-fighting properties to it, and it's also very high in fiber, but it's not calorically dense. While we do have stored a bunch of pasta, we just didn't want to utilize it at this point in time, and we wanted to get in as much nutrition in a sense that we are purging our bodies right now purposefully with the intent of boosting our immune systems, because we know we're being attacked. We're all being attacked right now with all sorts of toxins. So, basically I substituted the cabbage as noodles. I've also done this in the past with spaghetti squash. Anybody else ever use spaghetti squash out there instead of using pasta? A lot less calories, but you still have a great meal with it. And so just restricting calories, which can be as simple as buying organic if you're not buying organic, and then portioning it out accordingly for the same sort of dollar amount per person. It absolutely can extend lifespan. There have been so many scientists and studies done, even going back into the 1930s. Back in 1935, Clive McKay, a scientist, published a startling discovery. Rats with severely restricted diets lived up to 33% longer than previously known possible. And this has been replicated in humans. So again, perfect opportunity to make sure that you're eating organic as much as possible, because we recognize too the organic might not be organic, but hopefully it's less toxic than what the quote-unquote conventional is. The other thing too is trying to eat as much live foods as possible. If your food is wrapped in plastic and comes in a box, it's not probably going to be live. And live food is, again, fruits and veggies. When you go into your garden and you pick lettuce, like today for our main meal, it was a salad that was basically an assortment of lettuces, fresh basil, fresh tomatoes, cucumber, pecans, strawberries, blueberries, onion. Trying to think what else was in there. A bunch, the pecans, and then we actually had we do eat cheese, so we had both provolone and mozzarella in there, along with a fresh organic dressing, and it was enormous, and that was our main meal, and we got the protein from the nuts and from the cheeses. So again, nutrient dense, but that is not a ton of calories. It's actually very, very low in calories, but that's how we typically eat. And then I also juiced 3 whole heads of organic celery, and we added 3 lemons to it. So that's what we've taken in today. We'll probably have a little something else, and all that we put in our body will be within about a 5 or 6 hour window, because there's a magical thing that happens at 13 hours. We start autophagy. We actually start to process the fat that's in our body. So the more time we can be in autophagy, the better. And again, you want to be very careful of the simple sugars. The other thing with live foods like that is the enzymes. Enzymes are so important. And when we cook our food, we cook away the enzymes. The enzymes are what help us to absorb our foods, actually bring it into the cells and feed those mitochondria.
Very, it's really important. And what happens is over time, we get a little bit lazy and we start to eat things that are more and more convenient. And the more convenient they are, the more processed they are. And the more processed they are, the less they're going to get along with our cellular structure. So when that happens, the body has to adjust. So eventually it gets used to eating that way, and we just get sicker, and it's going so slow we don't even notice it. So turning that back around and getting things done little by little, just like we started getting things worse little by little, we got to make things better little by little.
And so here's a great use for some of those masks you might have, hanging around. They make wonderful hammocks for birds. Look at that. When you take your birds with you on a ride, what a perfect perch. They get a great view. And, Cindy, just to share with you, Cindy is somebody that at about 5'6"-ish, 5'5.5", 5'6", currently is 115 to 120, but she wasn't always that way. She was like 180, somewhere in the 180s, and she doesn't mind me saying this, I don't think.
No, it was a struggle, and I went through a time in my life that was very, very difficult, and there was a lot of stressors, and there was a lot of things where I couldn't get any sleep, I couldn't get any rest, I didn't have time to cook food, so I was in all of these places. So it did take some time to get things turned around, but I did, and I gained that willpower. And the most interesting thing that happened is I started to get into tuning forks, and I realized as I tuned other people, I was tuning myself. So it turns out that I was giving myself the encouragement and the desire and the willpower, because that was the big thing. It's the willpower. Do you have the willpower to stop eating at night? Do you have the willpower to turn down that candy bar? And I was able to gain that through purpose, through finding my life's purpose. And it was a very, very difficult struggle, and my body did have a really hard time, but anything is reversible. All things are reversible.
So there's something called a body mass index. And as a former personal trainer at one point in time, I used to utilize this all the time when working with people. And you take your height and you put it in there. So at 5'5", and Cindy might be a little bit more than that, 120 pounds, which is basically the heavier side of where she typically stays at. Her BMI is 20. So underweight is less than 18.5. Normal weight's 18.5 to 24.9. Overweight is 25 to 29.9, and then obese is 30 or greater. Cancer risk, diabetes risk, they just go off the chart when you start getting above 25 as far as your BMI. For me, I was closer to 6 feet. Now, we're getting old, so we're starting to shrink. And so I'm currently around 170, so my BMI is 23.7. Most people would probably say, yeah, you're on the thin side, but in reality, 23.7 is normal, but it's towards the higher end of normal. So again, this just kind of gives us an idea, because we've gotten used to seeing people heavier than they ever were. When you look back to photos from the 1930s and 1940s, and you see people walking around, everybody looks slim. And what's happened is the junk food, the prepackaged food, it's really all about the modern sad diet. The standard American diet is a very sad thing that leads to all sorts of dis-ease. So, in these times when we are being literally attacked and poisoned in our water, our air, our food, everything around us, and also seduced into a lifestyle of just basically lounging in chairs and a virtual world, which many people are ready to just jump right into a metaverse, it's all leading to ill health. And so we have to take that back and, again, take control of our lives as much as possible. As always, guys, I want to thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Couldn't do it without you guys. Do check out Medicinal Foods. These are really good guys. And use coupon code EEA. It does give you a discount, does support the channel. Much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.